They said it was peace. They always said it was peace. For 50 years, humanity played along, smiling at their condescension, bowing before their bloated bureaucracy, and sitting quietly in the back of the Galactic Council chamber while the older, more enlightened species made decisions that always somehow pushed Earth last. We signed their charters, translated our laws to match theirs, and even gave up our best scientists to help build that cursed interstellar accord. But the truth is, peace is just war with prettier lies. It started small: trade limits, red tape, sanctions over cultural aggression. Words, just words. But then came the quotas, the restrictions, the colonies that mysteriously lost support, the accidents in mining zones. And still, we swallowed it. Earth kept sending diplomats, kept extending hands, kept pretending we were equals in a council that never saw us as more than useful savages. Then they touched our children. It was a research outpost on Proxima 3, non-militarized, civilian-run, mostly families. When the Threk Dominion accused us of illegal nanoweapon testing, the Council didn't investigate. They sent a containment order. No warning. No debate. 17 human families. Gone. Vaporized in a silent flash of Council-sanctioned cleansing. The Council called it a necessary action. President Corvin, our elected voice, stood in that chamber with a dead child's photo in his hand and demanded justice. What he got was laughter. 1,000 voices hissing their amusement through scaled lips and clicking jaws, their translator boxes butchering our grief into cold neutrality. When he shouted, really shouted, the way only a father who's seen too many coffins can, security drones dragged him out. That image played on every feed across the Terran systems. A human leader, silenced mid-scream while the Council continued their agenda. And that was the moment it broke. Not for our politicians, not for the diplomats, but for the men on the rigs, in the hangars, in the breeding pits of asteroid belts where humans broke their backs to fuel a galaxy that never gave them a damn thing back. It broke for Logan Creed. Nobody voted for Logan. He wasn't a general or a statesman. He ran cargo, smuggled parts, spat on permits. But the day Proxima 3 burned, he gathered his crew and hijacked a retired gunship from the Terran Orbital Museum. Called it the Blood Price. Fitted it with illegal pulse railers and a command override stolen from a scrapyard AI. The next week he jumped to Council space and blew a Threk cruiser clean in half. No warning, no message, just fire. That was the beginning. Creed became the ghost of the stars, each attack a message written in flame. He didn't care if he lived. He didn't care if anyone followed. But he gave humanity something it hadn't had in decades. A voice not asking for a seat, but screaming war back into the face of silence. And the galaxy started listening. First it was a whisper. Humans are dangerous again. Then it turned to fear. The Council tripled patrols in Terran sectors. Too late. Because by then, humanity had already stopped pretending. Factories turned silent. Trade routes collapsed. Civilian ships vanished, only to return with scars and stories. No more patience, no more diplomacy. The Blood Price was just the first. The Blood Price didn't just light up a Threk cruiser. It ignited something far more volatile. Rage, memory, pride. All the things the Council thought it had scrubbed clean from Earth's soul came roaring back like a firestorm. The moment the footage hit the net, grainy video of a massive, sleek gunship bursting from warp and carving a warship in half with 2 precision rail shots, the Terran worlds exploded. Not in fear, but in celebration. A man, a human, had struck back. Creed's name was being whispered in bars, screamed in streets, painted on walls in shattered mining colonies and orbital junkyards. Logan Creed lives. We remember Proxima. Blood for blood. And for once, Earth's silence ended. The Council issued a formal condemnation, of course. They always did. Threatened sanctions, embargoes, disciplinary war tribunals, terms that meant nothing anymore. For the first time in a century, humanity didn't flinch. Earth Command didn't respond. The president didn't hold another teary speech. There were no apologies, just static, just silence. And silence, in the eyes of the Galaxy Council, was war. In the black of space, far from the marble towers of the galactic spire, the rules changed fast. Creed knew that. His ship, once a polished museum piece, was now a hybrid beast of fury. Patched armor, stripped down AI, hull scars painted over with kill counts. His crew? Not soldiers. They were engineers, smugglers, miners, men with nothing left but anger and a skill set forged in the underbelly of the Terran grind. Elias Stroud, mechanic from Ceres, a quiet man who once fixed Council freighters, now built illegal energy disruptors from scavenged debris. Roderick Kane, a pilot who'd flown survey missions across uncharted voids, now a warhound with blood on his hands and no regrets in his heart. And then there was Rook, a teenage stowaway from Marsport, barely 16, who rewired the Blood Price's comms to blast Creed's message across 6 sectors. We're not asking anymore. Their hit list wasn't random. Every ship, every outpost they hit had ties to the Proxima 3 strike or the Council's enforcement chains. The crew called it justice. The Council called it terrorism. But to most Terrans watching from their dying colonies, it was the first time they'd seen someone hit back. And win. Weeks turned into months. Creed's campaign spread like wildfire. Dozens of freighters vanished from Council docks and showed up under new banners, Earth's banners. Pirate lords bowed out or pledged their fleets. Mercenary bands defected, dumping their alien contracts to follow the human cause. They weren't patriots. They were pissed-off men who'd had enough of pretending their species wasn't worth fighting for. And through it all, the Council underestimated the one thing they'd never understood: what humans do when cornered. They thought Creed was a spark, but he was a fuse. The shift became undeniable when Earth's lunar shipyards, thought to be decommissioned, suddenly went active. Giant dry docks lit up like old stars, hulls being laid, cannons welded on, names carved into steel by hand, old names, Independence, Furyborn, Iron Shepherd, ships built not for exploration, but annihilation. The Council sent envoys, pathetic drones with veiled threats, asking for dialogue. Earth didn't even shoot them down, they just didn't answer. And then came Kahless Station, a Council hub floating in the Avarian sector, neutral ground, filled with diplomats, trade delegates, and alien royalty. It was untouchable. No one ever attacked it. Until Creed did. He didn't destroy it. He didn't even fire a shot. What he did was worse. At 0300 station time, the Blood Price dropped from warp and released an encrypted broadcast across all channels. A feed of Proxima 3, children playing, scientists laughing, then static, then the orbital firebombing, then silence. 1 minute later, every door on Kahless locked shut, power drained, oxygen systems shut off, and a single message burned across every console. Now you know what silence feels like. Creed pulled out just before the Council scrambled ships to intercept. No casualties, just a warning, a mirror. It was the move that flipped the board. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. News feeds that once called Earth unstable now asked if the Council had gone too far. Lesser races, once terrified of crossing the Tri-Flag Alliance, began to whisper support for humans. Some offered resources, others offered sanctuary, and a few asked how they could help burn the Council to the ground. Creed didn't want allies. He wanted reckoning. But the president, old Garrison Hale, saw the storm coming. He was no coward. He'd been silent long enough. He issued Earth's first open declaration in over 100 years. We are no longer subject to council law. Humanity governs itself. Any attack on a human colony will be met with full retaliation. The message ended with one sentence that echoed through every corner of space. We remember Proxima. The Council declared war the next day. Their fleets were vast, their technology superior, their strategy brutal, but they forgot one thing. Humans don't fight clean. We fight to win. We fight to bury our dead and make sure the ones who did it never sleep again. In the first month of war, Earth lost 12 colonies, but for everyone taken, the Council lost 4 ships, sometimes 5, sometimes entire convoys, because Creed wasn't alone anymore. Blood Price became a symbol, but now there were others. The Last Stand, Black Echo, Furyborn, ships crewed by former slaves, outlaws, ex-military, all wearing the human crest like a middle finger aimed at every council world. And Logan Creed? He stopped being a man. He became a myth. Some said he had a neural chip that let him think in hyperspace. Others claimed he died and was resurrected in a warp rift. Truth was simpler. Creed had nothing left to lose. That made him the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. One evening, as his ship drifted near the shattered moons of Korgan Belt, Kane leaned on the rail beside him. "You think this ends with us winning?" he asked, voice low. Creed didn't look at him, just lit a smoke and stared into the endless dark. "We already won," he said. Kane frowned. "How you figure?" Creed took a drag. Exhaled. Because they're scared. For the first time in centuries. They're scared of humans again. He was right. The Council's elite worlds were on high alert. Patrols doubled, civil unrest rising. Even their own races began questioning the truth behind Proxima. Questions became doubt. Doubt became dissent. But that chance was long gone. Because Earth wasn't just angry, it wasn't just vengeful, it was unified, hardened, and it was building something darker than revenge, a legacy. And at the front of that legacy sailed the Blood Price, with Logan Creed at its helm, a man turned legend, a legend turned reckoning. He didn't care about politics, didn't want medals, didn't trust peace. He just wanted the Council to remember one truth. You can break a people, starve them, mock them, strip their voice, but if you kill their children, they will never stop hunting you. War changes a man. But the kind of war Logan Creed was fighting, it didn't just change him. It hollowed him out and filled the empty space with something colder. By the 3rd month of open conflict, human losses had climbed past 30,000. Civilians, colonists, fighters, kids. It didn't matter. The Council's war engines didn't discriminate. Neither did their orbital strikes. They leveled entire domes just to root out one freighter crew that once traded with the Blood Price. But with every crater they left, 10 more Terrans picked up a gun. Creed wasn't leading an army. He was lighting a fire and watching it spread. Every supply raid, every patrol ambush, every planetary blockade he cracked open, it all fed the machine. Earth's black markets became war zones. Shipyards started operating in shifts around the clock. People who'd spent their lives scavenging scraps were now building torpedoes by hand. But not all of it was glory. There were times Creed sat in the captain's chair, lights dimmed, staring at his own reflection on the black viewport. He didn't speak, didn't smoke, just sat there, watching the stars like they owed him answers. The man who had nothing left was now the man everyone followed. And that weight wasn't pride. It was pressure, the kind that cracked bones from the inside out. Cain saw it. So did Elias. But nobody said a damn word. Because they needed him. And maybe, deep down, Creed needed this war more than anyone. Rook, the kid from Marsport, had started keeping track of the blood price's kills. Not just numbers, names, ship IDs, casualty estimates, council species confirmed. He painted them on the mess wall in red ink. The wall stretched the length of the lower deck. People stopped calling it a wall. They called it the debt ledger. By week 12, the blood price had destroyed or crippled 22 confirmed council ships, 5 orbital stations, and intercepted 18 weapon convoys. But one mission stood out, changed everything. Creed got wind of a secret convoy, council flagged, carrying non-disclosed diplomatic cargo through the Dark Veil sector, a dead patch of space with no known colonies or jump gates. The kind of place you send secrets to disappear. Elias ran the scans. Cain plotted the intercept. Creed just nodded. "We take it, no survivors." That wasn't new. But something about how he said it, it wasn't strategy anymore. It was personal. The ambush was textbook. Creed's team disabled the lead ship with EMP mines, then dropped the blood price out of warp directly above the escort wing. No time for them to scatter. Pulse cannons fired first. Ion blades followed. It was a massacre. Silent. Efficient. But when they boarded the main freighter, they didn't find weapons. They found cages. Dozens of them, each one holding a child. Human. Some were crying, some weren't moving. Elias froze mid-step. Cain cursed and looked away. Even Creed, who'd walked through blood so many times, stood still for a full minute. "They're trafficking us," Rook whispered from the rear. His voice cracked. "That's what the diplomatic cargo is." Medical logs confirmed it. The council had been rounding up children from frontier colonies marked as missing or evacuated. Labels lied. They weren't missing. They were taken, experimented on, sold, re-educated. To the council, they were lab meat. To Logan Creed, they were his final line. When he walked back to the bridge that day, he didn't say a word. He just opened a fleet-wide channel. No encryption, no code. He spoke directly to every human system, every council ear, every neutral feed. "They don't see us as a race. They see us as material. That's not war. That's extinction with paperwork. We're done asking. We're done bleeding politely. They took our homes. They took our voices. Now they're stealing our children. This isn't about freedom anymore. It's about survival. Every ship that flies council colors from this moment on is a target. No exceptions. No diplomacy. You work with them. You die with them. We are the reckoning they earned." The feed went dead. 10 hours later, the blood price led a strike on the slave yard at Varnus Prime. 3 council garrisons annihilated. Over 200 human children freed. That was the day the first real fleet was born. Dozens of rogue ships scattered across the stars suddenly aligned. The Terran Retaliation Front, TRF, wasn't a government. It wasn't even a military. It was a cause. Each ship self-governed, but all followed Creed's broadcasts like scripture. His voice became the war horn. His coordinates became their orders. And the council? They were no longer mocking humanity. Now they were afraid. Meetings turned into emergency sessions. Alien races who once flaunted their disdain for Earth started beefing up their home defenses. Drones patrolled their skies. Children were pulled from off-world academies and shipped back home. Council warlords began hiring private militias, many made up of humans, ironically, just to protect their own vessels. But fear bred desperation, which is why they sent their enforcer. His name was Commander Velrax, half cybernetic, part of the Norax species, born in gas chambers and built for attrition warfare. The Council didn't send him to parley, they sent him to execute. He showed up in the new Lyra system with a flagship the size of Earth's old moon bases, and a message. Logan Creed is to be handed over. Anyone caught aiding him will be annihilated, without trial, without delay. Earth is not exempt. He burned 2 Terran-aligned colonies before Creed even responded. And when Creed did, he didn't do it with words. He targeted Velrax's supply route. 6 TRF ships ambushed his resupply freighter convoy near the Bleeding Nebula. Not one transport survived. Velrax responded by launching drones to Earth's moon. Creed responded by boarding one of Velrax's forward scout ships and leaving a single survivor with a message carved into his armor. Blood for blood. Creed lives. The war was no longer between nations. It was between ideologies, between submission and fire. And as Earth bled, it also built. Mars, once a dying terraformer graveyard, had become a forge, crafting weapons that didn't exist on any chart. Saturn's rings now hosted stealth shipyards, powered by hacked alien tech. Even old Earth, scarred and weathered, began training new generations of warriors who didn't learn peace in textbooks, but vengeance in flame. Still, Creed knew the day was coming when they'd face Velrax head-on, and deep down, he knew he might not survive it. He didn't care. He just wanted one thing: to be the last thing Velrax saw before everything he believed in burned to ash. By the time the Terran Retaliation Front launched its 100th strike, Logan Creed had stopped counting. The numbers didn't matter anymore. Names didn't either. Only results, only impact. Each system they destabilized, each convoy they crushed, each slave yard they razed, those were the victories that spoke louder than any council decree ever could. But there was a cost, and it was stacking up fast. Humanity had gone from scattered victims to the most unpredictable threat in the quadrant. But with that title came a shadow. Not every ship bearing the Earth crest played by the same rules. Some captains didn't wait for Creed's call. They struck targets he never sanctioned: civilian transports, border stations, even neutral trade posts. He'd started something powerful. But now it was evolving beyond him, splintering, and part of him feared what it could become if no one kept a hand on the wheel. Inside the command bay of the Blood Price, Rook stood with his back to the mess wall. The debt ledger had nearly reached the far end of the corridor. His voice cracked as he updated another line. Varnus Moon Outpost. 67 enemy casualties. No TRF losses. Creed stared at the red mark for a long moment, then finally asked, "Who ordered that strike?" Rook hesitated. Captain Soren. The gray bastard. He said the station was feeding info to Velrax. Creed narrowed his eyes. Was it confirmed? Rook didn't answer. Creed slammed his fist on the table, making Rook jump. "We don't become them, damn it! We don't strike without proof!" Kane stepped in from the hallway, arms crossed. "Logan, the men are tired. We're winning, yeah, but they're seeing ghosts everywhere now. They're ready to burn anything with a council flag, whether it's legit or not." Creed's jaw clenched. His voice dropped. "And when we start doing that, when we hit without cause, we're not fighting for survival anymore. We're just killing." Elias, ever the quiet one, added from his station, "Velrax is coming. We don't have time for a code of honor." But Creed wasn't so sure. The TRF was growing too fast, and loyalty wasn't uniform. Some crews followed Creed like he was a prophet. Others saw him as a stepping stone, a symbol to rally behind while they advanced their own wars. And now Velrax was using that chaos against them. Council drones intercepted a rogue TRF vessel called the Stormhound, caught executing prisoners from a surrendered Threk ship. That footage hit the networks within hours. Creed's name was attached to it. Publicly. That same day, 3 minor alien factions pulled their silent support from Earth. Supplies dried up. Jump gates previously unlocked now shut their codes to Terran vessels. The Council didn't have to defeat Creed on the battlefield if they could make him a monster in the court of opinion. Creed knew what had to be done. He boarded the gray bastard himself. No warning, no escort. Just walked onto Soren's deck with a pistol on his hip and eyes full of fire. Soren was a brute. 6'5", body modded with shock plating, face marked with Council war trophies. He didn't salute. He didn't flinch. Creed stared him down. "Why did you hit Varnus Moon?" Soren shrugged. "Because they sold out 3 of our cargo drops last cycle. That's reason enough." "Did you verify it?" "Didn't have to. Intel was strong enough." Creed stepped closer. "You killed 26 non-combatants, children included." "Collateral," Soren said. "They knew who ran that station. They stayed. That's on them." Creed didn't hesitate. He drew his pistol and shot Soren through the skull in front of his entire crew. No speech, no warning, just execution. Then he turned to the rest of the men, voice low, steady, and cold. "We are not savages. We're soldiers. We hit them because they killed our kids, not because we enjoy the blood. This question mark. This is what happens to anyone who forgets why we started." He walked off the ship in silence. That broadcast went viral across the TRF. Creed's message was simple. "This war is about justice, not chaos. If you dishonor the cause, you'll answer to me personally." Some captains defected that day, branding Creed a tyrant. Most stayed, and the movement grew sharper. Meanwhile, Earth's government, such as it was, had turned quiet. President Hale, once the voice of Terran diplomacy, had gone underground. The Council placed a bounty on him so high it collapsed 3 outer economies. No one knew where he was. Some claimed Creed was protecting him. Others whispered Hale had given Creed full authority to lead all Terran operations, military and civil. The truth? Creed didn't need orders anymore. He was orders. Still, one message pierced the noise. It came encoded from Europa's deep ice core labs, a stealth tech project Creed hadn't heard from in over a year. The message was brief, marked Priority Black. New weapon completed. Requires direct retrieval. Must not fall into Council hands. Attached was a single schematic. The Wraith engine. A prototype ship. Half-organic. Warp-shifting. Untraceable. Velrax had his flagship. Now Creed had a ghost. He took a skeleton crew. Just Kane, Elias, Rook, and 2 others, and jumped for Europa, dodging 5 Council traps along the way. The station was half frozen when they arrived. Lights dimmed, corpses floating in 0G. Too late. Velrax had found it first. But he hadn't taken the ship. He'd sabotaged the bay. Explosives set. Timers blinking. They found the Wraith engine submerged in cryogel, pristine but locked. Creed had one choice: leave and lose it forever, or defuse the traps manually. Of course, he chose the hard way. Kane covered the corridor. Elias hacked the panel. Rook crawled into the shaft to kill the detonation relay. "Kid, you don't have to," Creed started. But Rook just looked at him, eyes steady. "They took my sister. I have to." 5 minutes later, the charge was dead. The Wraith engine was alive. They renamed her Black Mercy, a ship built for revenge. She flew without fuel, navigated without maps, and killed without warning. Now, Logan Creed had the weapon he needed to strike at Velrax himself. He didn't tell the TRF, didn't broadcast it. This wasn't for morale. This was personal, because Velrax had taken everything. Now it was time Creed returned the favor. The Black Mercy didn't fly. It hunted. No sound, no ripple in space. When it jumped, it didn't leave a warp signature. When it appeared, even long-range sensors stayed blind. The ship moved like thought, faster than any Council vessel, quieter than any stealth craft, and deadlier than anything humanity had ever put in the stars. And Logan Creed was now at its helm. The ship wasn't crude like the Blood Price. This was personal. Creed brought only Kane, Elias, and Rook. No extra hands, no backup. Just the men he trusted when trust could mean the difference between life and obliteration. They weren't there to command a fleet. They were there to deliver a message. That message was Velrax. Tracking the Council warlord wasn't easy. Velrax didn't linger. He hit, burned, and vanished, never staying in one sector long enough for a proper retaliation. But Creed didn't need time. He needed a pattern. And Elias, buried in the Mercy's internal systems, found one. "They're running scans on exo-organic regions," Elias said, brow furrowed, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. "Places where biotech colonies used to thrive. I think they're looking for a way to replicate the Mercy." Creed didn't speak. He knew what that meant. The Council didn't just fear him. They wanted his weapon. And if they got it, the war would end, not in battle, but in silence. Human silence. "We stop him," Creed muttered. "We end this now." Kane leaned against the frame, arms folded. "You mean kill Velrax?" "No," Creed said. "I mean erase him, like he never existed, like he never killed our people, never enslaved our kids, never laughed when Proxima burned." For the first time in weeks, Rook spoke up from the systems console. "What if he's ready for us?" Creed's eyes stayed locked on the dark space ahead. "Then we show him we were ready a long time ago." The Black Mercy jumped. No sound, no warning. Velrax's fleet sat above a dead system, Ganeth Prime. The planet had long since been stripped of its core, left as a hollow husk drifting in gravitational decay. Perfect for hiding a command post. A fleet of 20 Council warships orbited its remains. They didn't see the Mercy coming. Creed launched a virus through subspace comms first, a neural disruption burst keyed specifically to Council frequencies. Within 3 seconds, 3 destroyers lost power. Shields collapsed. The Mercy streaked between them like a blade. Pulse torpedoes to the engines, EMP rounds to the sensors, each shot surgical, not to kill, but to disarm. Then they boarded the Judgment Spear, Velrax's flagship. The boarding hatch hissed open. The lights flickered. Creed stepped in first. Helmet off. Face bare, no fear. The corridor was empty. Too empty. Elias stayed near the hatch, fingers on a remote detonation rig. Rook followed behind Creed, armed but shaking. Kane moved like a ghost, rifle raised, steps silent. Then came the voice. Low, metallic, amused. "You finally came, Logan Creed." Velrax. His voice echoed through the ship's comms. No cameras, no visible source. Just his voice and the hum of a ship preparing for something unholy. "I've waited for this," Velrax said. "Not because I feared you, but because I wanted to see if the legend matched the man." Creed said nothing, just walked toward the command bridge. "I burned Proxima because you humans refused to stay in your place," Velrax continued. "But it made you interesting. Before that, you were just background noise." They reached the final door. Creed stopped. His hand hovered near the panel. "Once I kill you," Velrax said, "they'll call me the savior of order, the one who silenced the human curse." Creed leaned forward, pressed the panel, and the doors hissed open. Velrax stood alone in the middle of the bridge. No guards, no armor, just his massive cybernetic frame, plated in black and red, eyes glowing like furnace fire. The moment was still. Then Creed stepped forward. Velrax drew a blade. Creed didn't. He didn't need one. They clashed. Flesh against metal. Hate against machine. Velrax struck first, swinging the blade with an inhuman roar. Creed ducked, drove a knife, hidden in his boot, up into the joint of Velrax's arm. Sparks flew. Velrax backhanded him, sent Creed crashing into the console wall. Kane opened fire. Velrax's shield kicked in, absorbing the rounds. He turned, slammed a fist into the wall, and knocked Kane out with a burst of concussive force. Elias triggered the overload trap. Didn't matter. Velrax had shield dampeners. Only Rook, small and unnoticed, got behind him. He climbed the wires, found the neural socket, and drove a feedback spike into it. Velrax screamed, one that shook the room. Creed used the moment. He lunged, knife in both hands, and drove it straight into Velrax's throat port. The warlord buckled, but didn't fall. He reached, one last time, for the boy. Rook. And Creed, broken ribs and all, grabbed Velrax's arm and tore it backward with a sickening snap. Velrax hit the deck, sparking, bleeding, cursing in 4 languages. Creed stood over him. No speeches, no mercy, just a single bullet through the skull. Then silence. The judgment spear was theirs. But Creed didn't stop there. He took Velrax's corpse, dragged it to the center of the ship, and broadcast the image to every council frequency he could hijack. "This is your enforcer. This is what's left of him. Keep coming, and we'll bury the rest of you beside him." Then he activated the ship's self-destruct, left the body in the flames, and returned to the Black Mercy. As they jumped away, Kane stirred, blood trickling down his temple. "You did it," he said. "You killed the Council's hammer." Creed didn't answer. He just looked out the viewport, into the stars, and whispered to himself, "Not yet." Because Velrax was just one head of the beast. And the Council had many more. Velrax was dead. And for 72 hours, the galaxy held its breath. Council broadcasts went dark. News stations ran looping footage of the charred remains of the Judgment Spear, overlaid with silent subtitles. Council response pending. On Earth, in the underground bunkers of old New Geneva, people poured into the streets. For the first time since the war began, there were cheers. People sang Creed's name. Murals were painted, flags raised. For a moment, brief and electric, the Terran spirit didn't just burn, it roared. But war doesn't end when a tyrant falls. It sharpens. The Council didn't collapse, it calcified. With Velrax gone, their fear no longer whispered behind closed doors. Now it screamed across every chamber, every subcommittee, every bureaucratic hive they'd built to feel safe from the chaos they once orchestrated. And fear, Creed knew, makes monsters out of bureaucrats. The Council didn't retaliate with fleets this time. No orbital bombardments, no drone swarms. They retaliated with peace. A transmission was received by the TRF's Central Comms outpost on Luna, direct, encoded in the old Terran standard. To Logan Creed, the Council extends an offer of ceasefire. A diplomatic envoy will arrive at coordinates Alpha 94K within 7 cycles. No weapons, no traps. Just dialogue. Our leaders are prepared to negotiate. Council Speaker, Orvin Null. It was a trap. Everyone knew it. But the galaxy was watching, and if Creed refused, the Council would use it to sway the outer worlds, painting humanity as war-mongering savages who wouldn't even take peace when it was handed to them. Kane slammed his fist on the ops table. "You go to that meet, you're dead." Creed leaned back, calm as ever. "Only if I go soft." Elias, scanning the message headers, frowned. "It's real, not a drone. They're sending flesh." "Why?" Rook asked, curled in the corner with a pulse rifle across his knees. "They don't want peace. Not really." Creed turned slowly toward him. "Because they want a show. They think they can turn us into what they always said we were, animals, terrorists. But we're not." He stood. "And I'm going. Alone." Kane cursed. "You suicidal bastard." "They're expecting Creed the killer," he said, cutting him off. "Let them meet Creed the judge." The envoy ship arrived in orbit above the old ruins of Altaris 9, a dead moon stripped bare during the early Council Wars. No life, no structures, just a flat, open plain of stone and ash. Perfect for betrayal. Creed landed the Black Mercy by himself, armor tight, rifle strapped, no fanfare. The Council ship was sleek, diplomatic white, with a single ramp extending like a tongue. Out came two delegates, Orvin Null, thin, sickly blue skin, dressed in ceremonial robes, and beside him, a human, a woman. Tall, clean, eyes like frost. She introduced herself as Representative Ellen Darrow, part of the Earth Council Mediation Corps. Creed didn't shake her hand. "Last time someone spoke for Earth," he said flatly, "they got dragged out of the Council screaming." She didn't blink. "I'm not here to apologize." Null spoke next, voice slick and reedy. "We've re-evaluated the human question." Creed chuckled. "Oh, good. I was worried we were just dying for your entertainment." They offered terms: autonomy, territory control, recognition of Earth's independence, and amnesty for Creed. But there was a price. Creed would disband the TRF, lay down arms, dismantle the Black Mercy, submit to tribunal review for war crimes. Ellen Darrow leaned in. "You get to live, Logan, not as a fugitive, not as a myth, but as a man. Think of what you could build. Real peace." Creed stared at her, unblinking. "You want me to put my weapon down, when I haven't even reached the people who ordered Proxima?" "Proxima was a mistake." He stepped forward. "Proxima was a genocide. Your mistake is thinking we forgot." Null's face darkened. "Then we have nothing further to discuss." Creed turned away, stopped, and then glanced over his shoulder. "There's a saying we have back on Earth. Never negotiate with the people who lit the match while you're still pulling bodies from the fire." He walked off the field. The ceasefire collapsed before the day ended. 3 Council-aligned border worlds declared martial law. TRF ships came under immediate attack in the Helios Belt. A Council fleet attempted to breach Mars' orbit under the pretense of security inspections. Creed responded the only way he knew how: with fire. The Blood Price, Black Mercy, and 12 Allied ships jumped to the Helios sector. They cut the Council patrols into slag. No survivors, no messages left. Just a new warning, burned into the hull of one remaining lifeboat. Peace without justice is surrender. And back on the Black Mercy, Creed stood at the war table, surrounded by the ones who hadn't left him. Kane, Elias, Rook. "Send a message," Creed said. To every TRF captain, every human stronghold, every independent faction still listening. He looked up. The Council wants peace on its terms. We'll give them war on ours. He paused. We no longer fight for survival. We fight to make damn sure they never forget why they should have left us the hell alone. He looked into the black beyond the viewport. And we don't stop until their council is ash. The Council believed that war had rules. Even as systems burned and fleets crumbled, they clung to their ceremonies, their charters, their polished diplomatic lies. They thought if they called it containment or retaliation, it would stay clean, controlled. But humans weren't playing by Council rules anymore. And Logan Creed had never been interested in pretending. After the false peace talks on Eltaris 9, the Terran Retaliation Front mobilized across all sectors. Not in scattered raids or freelance strikes, this was organized war. Human-made AI launched coordinated attacks on Council data networks. Anti-warp traps were seated in high-traffic zones, cutting off trade and paralyzing civilian systems. And Creed? He was planning something worse. It started with a whisper. Project Seraphim. Only Kane and Elias knew the full scope. Hidden deep in the remnants of Titan's lower bunkers was a shipyard never listed on any TRF registry. Built under the crust, powered by volcanic vents, and surrounded by a black wall defense grid, it had one purpose: to house Earth's doomsday option. Not a weapon of mass destruction. A message. Written in blood. The Seraphim-class dreadnought wasn't designed for battle. It was designed for one strike, a symbolic slaughter that no alien eye would forget. And the target wasn't military, it was sacred. Corvex, the Council's ceremonial capital. A planet untouched by war for 3,000 years. The place where laws were written, where treaties were born, where peace was worshipped like a god. Creed wanted to burn it, not for tactics, for memory. You hit Corvex, Kane warned, and this war never ends. Creed stood in the hollow bridge of the unfinished dreadnought, staring at the blueprint lines projected in red across the walls. It's already never ending, he said. Might as well make the pain permanent. Elias, running final diagnostics on the propulsion core, didn't even argue. He just muttered, "This will mark us forever. No going back." Creed's face was hard. Cold. Good. He named the ship Crucible. And once it was ready, he didn't tell the TRF. He launched with a ghost crew. AI-piloted systems, black-coded nav patterns, and one final override key in his palm. The Black Mercy escorted him halfway, then peeled off. Kane stayed behind to hold the TRF together. Rook begged to come. Creed refused. "If this works," he said, "you'll be needed more than I ever was." Then he was gone. The Crucible jumped into Council space alone. 3 ships tried to intercept. None returned. The approach to Corvex was quiet. The Council scanners never saw it coming, cloaked under sub-quantum field distortions designed by Elias himself. A trick Creed had stolen from the Council's own failed dark matter research. The Crucible didn't fire weapons. It spoke. Before impact, Creed hijacked every transmission band in the sector, every frequency, every device. The message was raw, unfiltered, his voice unbroken. "This is Logan Creed. Earth remembers. You killed our children, burned our colonies, mocked our grief. Now you'll remember us, not as allies, not as victims, but as the fire that finally made you bleed." Then the Crucible dropped from orbit. It hit the planet like a divine hammer. No laser, no torpedo, just kinetic fury, a dreadnought moving at superluminal momentum, crashing into the heart of the Council's most protected sanctuary. A single ship, A single strike. But when the dust cleared, the capital was gone. Not crippled. Erased. Over 1.3 million dead. Not just soldiers, diplomats, advisors, high counselors. And the world watched it all in real time. Some screamed genocide, others called it balance. But all agreed on one thing. Humanity had done the unthinkable. The council fractured within hours. Species that once stood united began pointing fingers. Some pulled out of the alliance entirely. Riots erupted on high-born worlds. Military governors turned against their own leaders, demanding an end to Earth's provocation, while others begged to sue for peace. And in the TRF? There was chaos. Half celebrated Creed as the man who finally made the council bleed. The other half, moderates, diplomats, tired captains, accused him of betraying the cause. Kane, holding the fragile threads of leadership in Creed's absence, stood before a fractured war council aboard the Blood Price. "He did what none of us could," Kane said. "He ended their illusion of safety." "You call that justice?" one captain shouted. "That was a cultural slaughter. He burned their Vatican." "He burned their illusion," Kane snapped back. "They killed Proxima. They trafficked our children. What Creed did, it wasn't pretty, but it was necessary." And somewhere, in deep space, hidden on a coded escape vessel rigged to the Crucible's final systems, Creed breathed. He'd survived. Barely. His body was broken, half his right side burned. But he was alive. And no one knew it yet. They believed he died with the ship. And maybe part of him had. In the darkness, floating through the void, he whispered only 2 words to himself. "Now, they'll remember." The stars themselves felt colder. Traders whispered in hushed tones. News feeds ran blank screens out of fear. Governments locked down their planets, barricaded spaceports, recalled every ambassador and minister. And Earth? Earth watched in silence as their greatest enemy fell, and as their greatest warrior vanished. No one had heard from Logan Creed since the Crucible lit the skies over the Council's holy planet. No recovery, no broadcast, nothing. Not even the Terran Retaliation Front had received coordinates. The galaxy assumed the obvious. Logan Creed was dead. On the Outer Rim colonies, his name was painted across the rusted walls of abandoned council bases. Creed lives became both prayer and promise. The poor swore by him. The war-scarred veterans of the TRF carved his initials into their rifles. And Kane, now acting commander of the remaining human war fleets, bore the burden of a legend no one could replace. It had been 3 weeks since Corvex. And the Council? They were bleeding out in slow motion. Their high command annihilated, their major species fighting internal revolts. The Threk Dominion had gone quiet, retreating into deep space. The Norax had splintered. The core worlds no longer answered to a central voice. The power that once dictated Earth's fate was now hiding in bunkers, pointing fingers at each other. Still, some believed humanity had gone too far. Council sympathizers across neutral systems demanded tribunals. Justice. A new interstellar order. They called for Earth to surrender Creed's lieutenants, to be held responsible for Corvex, to stand trial for war crimes. But there was no one to surrender. No Creed to place in chains. Only men like Kane, Elias, and the new Terran leadership. Men hardened by years of slaughter, betrayal, and silence. The TRF issued a single reply to those demands. "We don't put ghosts on trial." Kane knew the truth. Creed wasn't dead. A week after the Corvex strike, he received a pulse-coded signal. A string of numbers only one man would use. The message came from an old mining relay in the Varga Drift. an empty wasteland of shattered moons and black holes. Kane didn't hesitate. He took the blood price himself, leaving command with Elias, and jumped. No escort, no announcement. And when he arrived, Creed was there, alive. Barely. His right arm was gone, replaced by a jury-rigged prosthetic of council tech and human wiring. His eyes, one blood red, one gray, were sunken. A permanent limp dragged behind every step, but he stood. He breathed. He lived. Kane didn't say a word, just walked up and handed Creed a flask. They stood together in silence for a long while, looking out at the spinning husks of Varga Drift. Creed broke it first. "They think I'm dead." "They need to," Kane said. Creed nodded. "Good. I've done enough." "No," Kane replied. "You did what no one else could." "I made us monsters. You made them fear monsters." Creed sat down on a rusted hunk of metal, his voice quieter now. "The war's not over, is it?" Kane looked away. But it's changed. The Council's shattered. Earth's building alliances. Even some alien factions want in now. We're not begging anymore. We're choosing who we stand with. And what do they want from us? Kane smiled bitterly. To forget. To move on. To pretend we didn't burn their cathedral. Creed let the silence linger. Then, are we ready to lead? Or are we just the next tyrants waiting to be born? Kane didn't answer, but they both knew the truth. That was the price of survival, of revenge, of breaking the leash that held Earth down for centuries. Victory didn't mean purity. It meant pain, and it meant choices. Creed rose slowly. Every joint screamed. Every memory burned. "I'm not coming back." Kane didn't flinch. "I know. They'll make statues, write lies, make me some kind of savior." "You're not a savior." Creed smiled. "Damn right I'm not." He handed Kane a sealed datapad. "This has everything. Names, locations, council files, even some black sites we never hit." Kane took it. "What do I do with it?" Creed stared into the stars. "Use it to finish what I started, but be better than me." Kane put a hand on his shoulder. "You were the fire, but we're the forge now." Creed gave a weak laugh. "Sounds poetic. You get that from Rook?" Kane smiled. "Kid's writing speeches now. Thinks he's some kind of historian." Creed chuckled, but the weight didn't leave his eyes. Kane knew this was the last time they'd see each other. Creed climbed aboard a stolen scout vessel, patched in a hidden jump drive, and set the coordinates to nowhere. Before the door closed, Kane asked the question that had haunted him since Corvex. Did it feel like justice? Creed didn't look back. "No," he said. "It felt like revenge. But maybe that's enough for now." The door sealed, and Logan Creed vanished for the second time. Years passed. The Terran Retaliation Front became the Terran Alliance. The Council collapsed completely. In its place rose a fragile union of new powers, some human, some alien, all aware now of what Earth could do when pushed. The story of Logan Creed spread like wildfire. To some, he was a war criminal, a butcher, a man who lost everything and answered back with annihilation. To others, he was a savior, a soldier who refused to bow, the voice of vengeance in a galaxy that had tried to silence Earth for good. And to Kane, Elias, and Rook, he was just a man, flawed, wounded, haunted. But in the end, necessary. The last time Rook ever mentioned him, it was during a speech on a rebuilt Proxima colony, where children now played again and flowers grew over the ashes. He said, "Logan Creed didn't give us peace, he gave us a voice, and it's up to us to make that voice something the stars will never try to silence again." And far away, in a nameless corner of space, an old ship drifted. Inside, a man watched stars blink into the void. He didn't wear armor anymore. He didn't carry a weapon. But his eyes still remembered fire. And somewhere, deep in the bones of the galaxy, the Council's ghost still whispered, "Creed lives." The stars had changed, not in shape or color or number, but in how they were seen. Once they were symbols of wonder, dreams, the unreachable, but now they carried scars, memories scorched into the void. Some called it the Era of Fire, others the Reckoning Cycle, but most just called it After Creed. 10 years had passed since the fall of Corvex. Earth had rebuilt, not in the image of its old, broken past, but something new. The Terran Alliance was not perfect. It was not gentle, but it was respected, feared even. No longer the planet at the end of every joke, no longer the servants of ancient species, no longer a footnote in galactic policy. Earth had earned its name in blood. Rook, once a war-torn stowaway, was now a counselor on the Terran High Assembly. He wore no medals, refused official portraits, and only spoke when it mattered. But when he did, planets listened. Kane had stepped down 2 years prior, not from pressure, from fatigue. He'd fought too long, carried too much. He now lived in the green valleys of Terra Nova, planting crops in soil that once fed on ash. People still visited, hoping for stories. He gave them silence and a look that said, "You don't want to know the truth." And Elias? He vanished shortly after the armistice was signed with the newly formed Outer Ring Coalition. Some said he joined a monastery on a cold moon. Others believed he returned to the Black Labs to build something the galaxy hadn't seen yet. But one fact held true. None of them ever spoke Creed's name in public again. He had become too big, too sacred, too feared. The children born in the wake of his war grew up hearing both sides. Some textbooks painted him as the embodiment of Earth's pain, raw and righteous. Others called him a warning, a monster created by neglect and betrayal. But none denied his impact. No child in the galaxy didn't know the image of Creed standing on the judgment spear, gun in one hand, council blood on his boots, and that look. The one that said he hadn't come to speak, but to end. Even Corvex, rebuilt from ruins by alien hands, bore his shadow. A monument, unauthorized, illegal, was once erected on the edge of the new city. Just a metal plate. No face, no name, just 2 words etched into the base. He remembered. It was torn down within a week, rebuilt the next night, torn again, rebuilt again. They stopped trying. But the galaxy had moved on. Wars ended. Treaties signed. New factions rose. And somewhere, far beyond the mapped sectors, a small, unremarkable moon circled a dying star. On that moon, deep beneath its crust, a bunker blinked awake for the first time in 10 years. Inside it, systems reactivated. Pressure stabilized. And a man opened his eyes. Logan Creed. Older now, hair gone gray at the edges, skin marked with the faded burns of Corvex. The arm, the prosthetic, had been upgraded during his exile. Not for battle, for function, simplicity. He walked out into the pale light of the dead moon and looked up. No cameras watched. No networks buzzed. Just silence. Beautiful, unbroken silence. He smiled. Not because of peace, but because the fire was finally out. A short-range comms device embedded in the bunker console blinked green. He hadn't used it in years. It had only one recipient. A direct line. He activated it. Kane answered. He looked older, softer. But those eyes, still the same, still sharp, still ready. Creed spoke first. "How bad is it?" Kane gave a faint smile. "Not bad at all. They're scared again. But for the right reasons now. No one's trying to leash Earth anymore." Creed nodded. "And Rook?" "He's better than both of us." "I figured." There was a long pause. Then Kane asked, "You coming back?" Creed didn't answer right away. He looked out at the horizon of that nameless rock. No cities, no graves, just sky and dust. "No," he said finally. "Let the dead stay stories." Kane's face fell quiet. "You did what had to be done." "No," Creed said. "I did what I couldn't forgive." Kane sighed. "We're still trying to be better." "Good, don't stop." Then Creed reached for the kill switch on the console. Kane's voice called out one last time. "You'll always be Earth's shadow, Logan." Creed smiled sadly. "Shadows don't need statues." The line cut. The device burned itself out, per Creed's design. He stood for a while longer on that moon, the wind low, the sky red with the dying star above. But here, Logan Creed was just a man again. And in that silence, maybe for the first time in his life, he felt peace.